I think it's fair to say that Daphne du Maurier's most notable work is Rebecca. And while I think My Cousin Rachel is just as good, I do completely love Rebecca and thoroughly understand why it's hailed as one of her greatest, if not her greatest. I'm quite fussy with adaptations. I have a very clear image in my head of Manderley and Mrs. De Winter, and for me it would take a lot to kind of live up to that. And I have to say, the 1997 version, it's actually a TV miniseries, two-parter, about 3 hours long, is the closest I've found that comes up to this. Now, describing the plot is a little bit difficult because it's one that I feel is better if you discover it on your own and unravel the mysteries as you go. But long story short, Maxim De Winter, who lives in Manderley, this stately home, recently widowed, he meets this woman, and this woman suddenly, or I guess quite quickly, becomes the second Mrs. De Winter, because his wife has died, and the new Mrs. De Winter moves in. We never know her name. We do not know what she is called, other than, of course, Mrs. De Winter, once they marry. And they live in this house with Mrs. Danvers, the maid, and the other staff, and it's quite an isolated, remote house, and suddenly weird things start to happen. It's quite a gothic film, and there's certainly something amiss, but you can't quite tell what it is, at least to begin with. In fact, you never really tell what it is. Even the ending itself leaves some questions, or at least from my perspective it does. And I think this is a pretty decent adaptation. Obviously, it doesn't quite capture the tense atmosphere that the novel does, because nobody could ever portray du Maurier's beautiful writing in film. You have to be immersed in the book and feel at one with the narrative, rather than, watching it on a film. It's much better if you read it, but it's still fantastic. We have a brilliant cast. Charles Dance as Maxim De Winter, which is brilliant casting. And we have Diana Rigg as Mrs. Danvers and Emilia Fox as the second Mrs. De Winter. I was really, really impressed with the casting. I'm not sure Emilia Fox is what I had in my mind, and certainly for Charles Dance, I don't think I had somebody like him, like his appearance in my mind when I read this. But watching it, I feel like they capture the mannerisms that were in my head quite well. Diana Rigg actually probably does look quite close to Mrs. Danvers, so that was quite interesting. The narrative itself is absolutely fantastic. It's full of surprises. You will not be able to guess where this narrative goes. It's thrilling, it's gripping, it's eerie, it's inspiring if you're a writer, because it's just such a fabulous story. The TV adaptation is good. It is very good. I can't really fault it. Short of saying it's not as good as the book, but then no adaptation ever would be, there's not really anything bad I can say about it. It's very well acted, very well cast, beautiful location. Manderley looks pretty similar to what I envisioned. The pacing's great, the atmosphere's great. In all, I'd say this is the only adaptation of Rebecca we need.